Alrighty. Hello everybody, we're live. Hi guys. Yes, hi Ray and Bront'e.
Hello.
Hello, hello.
Hey.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm excited. I'm updating programs.
Hello, how is everybody doing? Let's say hello to the people in the chat. Say hi in the chat, guys, so we can see you. Hi, 𝕤𝕣𝕣, the first person here. Congratulations. You won a big hug from us. Yes, here is a big hug. Thank you.
Baku ads hit me.
Ads hated you. I'm sorry, Baku. Hi, welcome. Thank you for coming.
They hit hard too. They're like, here's one. Okay, here's a second.
Yeah, here's the third. Man,
Yep.
do you
It's
want?
okay,
No, I need to tell you something. Sorry. On Twitch, you know what they do? Like, they force creators to have 3 minutes of ads, because if you have 3 minutes of ads, it means that when you open a stream, you don't get an ad. But man, I've sat behind the screen for 3 minutes for an ad, and it's like crazy. So YouTube all the way, guys. It's just 2 ads. Man, 3 minutes are incredibly long, man. Hey, Yana, hi! How is everybody
That's an entire
doing?
song.
What, sorry?
The 3-minute ad, it's an entire song. Like,
It's several ads. It's like, that is like hitting you hard when it's several ads. Like 6-second ads, but they never end. Man, that's so hard to withstand, yeah.
Oh
yes.
gosh.
It's wild to think that's how we used to do it with TV. It's so true. It's so true.
Yeah, but we're not used to it anymore.
Yeah,
we don't want
We're spoiled. We are very spoiled. Everything. I mean, even, hey, language learners these days, like, oh, I don't have to go outside, you know, to caveat into today's. I don't have to go outside. I don't have to find native speakers. I can just open ChatGPT.
Right.
I can just open my AI coach. Listen, y'all are spoiled.
Yeah. But even like, listen, even like being able to search for a song on YouTube with the lyrics. I remember looking at, MTV and writing down the titles of the songs just so I wouldn't forget. Man. Times have changed.
Especially songs in like Japanese and going, are these the right lyrics though? And like having to scour 3 different websites to find, like, oh no, these are just the translations. Oh no, this is the translation.
When I first started studying Japanese, I was on like awful forums that would like, you know, where you weren't at all sure, and like the romanization was what, like, you'd see one place call it senpai with an N and another place call it senpai with an M, and then they would say that there's a difference.
Yeah, right.
It's like interpretation. Videos were so important.
Hard times.
Man, yes. Right. Yeah, maybe we can talk about AI later today, because there is
one day, yeah.
I mean, today we could talk about the speaking connected to AI, because we'd like to hear your opinions as well about it, and everybody is in the chat's opinion, of course. 3 minutes ads equal 1 hour free from pre-rolls on Twitch TV. Yeah, it's it's bad. I've also been thinking about doing something about that, because that's very annoying. Let's learn languages watching that ads. Yeah, right. If you search for enough videos in the language, I think the ads start becoming in that language, to be honest, because it happened to me before.
Or if you change your device in another language. So my iPad is in French, and so when I watch YouTube videos on my iPad, my ads are in French. They're like French ads.
Or you need to speak next to your phone in that language, so you get conditioned ads. You know?
Yes. Like, do you hear me? Is it working?
Please, can you give me ads in French?
Yes. Go ahead.
I have actually used that not on purpose, but just casually. Like whenever I get ads in a different language, I'm like, okay, opportunity. I stop and pay attention to the ad a little bit. Whereas in any other language, if it's in English, I'm like, oh please, like I'm trying to block it out. But when it's in another language, I'm like, okay,
I'll give it a listen.
Yes, I get it, 100%. My goodness. Listening to Japanese, I was like, wait, what was it? Now we're this polyglots talk. We speak in all the languages at the same time. We take you by surprise sometimes. Yeah. Yeah. Also, I'm glad to see the Stream Elements is working in the chat today. Can we have a round of applause for Stream Elements working? Incredible. Yes. As always, maybe we can introduce ourselves on the channel a little bit, just in case you want to have the honor, Ray.
Yes, sure. Hello and welcome to Polyglots Talk. This is a monthly live stream and soon to be podcast where we are talking with you, interacting with you, answering your questions live, sort of like a hot seat. You have 3 trained professionals here. Ooh. You have 3 language coaches and teachers, and also, you know, polyglots themselves who have studied the languages. So this is a great opportunity for you to come and get all of your questions answered free of charge. And my name is Ray, and I am a polyglot with 6.5-ish language under my belt. Like it was 7, I'm gonna say 6.5 now. And I speak English, Jamaican, Swedish, Spanish, Chinese, Mandarin, Korean, and Japanese. And I'm interested in dabbling in Finnish, Hawaiian, and Italian. Yes, I am currently in China, but I I slow travel when I can. Me and my partner switch houses like once every 3 to 6 months. But yeah, I'm very unpredictable that way. I love to philosophize, and so me as a coach, I am best at talking about language and that language culture connection, how to really utilize connection to create automatic and natural fluency. That's my biggest skill. And yeah, I started Gladly Global with the hopes that we can bring together more like minds and have a language learning space, especially for adults. Yes, and so I will turn over this introduction to our second in command, Anna.
Second in command,
to
yes.
introduce this.
Thank you. Yes, I'm Anna. Hello, everybody. I manage the community at Gladly Global at the moment. So you find me on Discord. By the way, join our active and supportive community on Discord. It's a slow server. That means that it's not overwhelming if you're like... especially we have a lot of adults, so it's slow paced, and it's a space where you can ask questions and share your you know, your doubts, maybe your need for help or your wins. So it's a nice place if you're searching for a community for language learning that is not toxic or judgmental. I make sure of that that I am there to enforce the positive vibes and the supportive vibes. So yes, let's go. Thank you very much, Axel. Yeah, I will make you a mod. You the official yeah, we have some commands in the chat, so you can find the link right there. Yeah, what else? I think I will get the title of Dead Languages enthusiast of the team, because I realized recently that I'm just so in love with all the languages that I can study on manuscripts from many centuries ago. So maybe I will claim that title. I learned Latin, but I'm currently focusing on classical Japanese for my master's degree thesis, so I'm just like into that. But I also speak other languages, and I was thinking about something today, which I want to like, just a little comment I want to add here, even if it's my introduction, that is being able to speak a language is one skill in that language. So sometimes we can know languages without being super good at speaking them, or not at all, because there are also dead languages that we don't really speak anymore. So being able to read a language, for example, as an Italian, I can read Spanish or French. That counts, guys. Just saying. It's all right, like wanting to improve your speaking skills in a language is completely a choice, and that doesn't take away from the fact that you might be able to read or do other things in that language. So yeah, I just wanted to add that comment because I just thought about it. And I want to pass the torch of introduction to bront'e, our favorite guest here at the show. special
Absolutely.
guest. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. And I'm glad that you brought that up, because that's kind of my thing, is like some of the languages on my list are not ones that I am confident speaking, but I read them all the time. You know, and I read them confidently and am able to understand. So yes, I'm bront'e. I am the self-proclaimed introvert language coach, because that's my specialty. The people who are peopled out and, you know, think too much, overthink things because of their introversion, and, you know, perfectionists as well. Although I think we all help with that. I don't know, I focus a lot on the process of learning. I get into the nerdy parts of like the schedule creation and the organization and the, you know, let's map out your process so that it can feel doable. Like, that's my thing. That's what I thrive on. And also slowly, I don't want to say like initiating, but slowly showing people like it is possible, but you're overthinking it. Let's make it simple. Okay, this is your plan, and now let's do it and get consistent. So my list of languages right now is currently at 11. It is very weird for me to say that out loud, but I'm like, every time I have to count. So Spanish, French, Japanese, Korean, Mandarin Chinese, Russian, American Sign Language, Black American Sign Language, Tutnese, German, and Italian. German and Italian are baby languages, so I can say sentences here and there. And I would say the ones I'm most confident speaking would be Japanese, and then Spanish, and then Korean and French would probably be right after that. And then the rest are just like, I can get by, but mostly read or, you know, use them in other ways, like consuming content. But that's my spiel.
Great. Thank you so much for your introductions.
Thank you. I think what you can tell from our introductions is that we have a philosophy at GG where fluency is thinly defined, and we very much bring in this multi-layered concept of language skills. So when we talk about being great at a language, when we talk about being advanced in a language, that means something very different for each person. So even how we introduced our languages, each of us very clearly had a different idea of what our languages are.
Yes.
And each of us came from a different angle as well, like how we dive into it. So that's what makes Gladly Global particularly special. It's that we're not trying to sell you a cookie cutter idea, because there really isn't one way to study a language. And every person, because language is a living art, you know, it's called language arts for a reason. So each person will connect and kind of just be able to utilize language and enjoy language in a different way, and all of those ways are valid. So yeah, that's why we like to to moem, I like couldn't find the English word a second ago. Let's get together, 모으다, to to give you different perspectives.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. We're gonna dive into this and more. So today's topic is speaking, as we said, and we are so excited to see everybody's comment on this topic in the chat. So feel free to share if you have stories. Like, do you struggle with the speaking part of languages? Because many people say it's the hardest one to master. Other people, maybe it's the easiest one for them. So what is your experience with it? Do you have like any secret tip maybe to get better speaking? What is your experience with it? Yeah, we want to hear anything related to the topic, so feel free to share. We're gonna ask more questions. Also, hello to Korea and Aurora-chan and Alfred. Thank you for joining us today. Yes. All right. So one thing. So we were talking about this. We already introduced it during the introductions, ironically. But many people, when they say I know a language, they assume that that includes speaking, isn't it? Because that's like the fastest way to show if you know a language or not. In a way, it's like I can speak in this language. I can just change the way I'm speaking and like switch to this language mid-sentence because I want to show off, you know. And that's what people imagine when you're saying like I can speak a language. I know a language. You're like, tell me something in that language, right?
Oh yeah.
Right. So it's something that is considered like essential most of the time.
Yeah.
I'm very curious about asking this to our other people here in the Polyglots talk stream today. So which, like, you know, you always start with something when you dabble in a language. So what is your like number? Like, first I usually do this, and then where is the speaking in that rank, let's say.
Oh, speaking for me is always lower on the list. Reading is always the top.
Interesting.
Yeah, I already assumed that for bront'e.
Yeah, that's I'm like, if I can't read, then there's a problem.
Can I say something? Sorry, because we just got a big donation from the best person in the world, which is Kai-chan. Thank you so much. Our sugar person.
our sugar.
Thank you so much for the support.
Fan.
Number one fan.
Thank you, Kai Lulu. Yes.
Well, that's a wonderful way of supporting. Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah. So I want to say that I think that for most people, speaking is lower on the list, but that they feel guilty that speaking is lower on the list. So I think the bigger issue is that. And understanding how language acquisition works and like your goals and what you do and what that produces for you will help to alleviate said feelings, as well as understanding that you do have to train differently. Like, it's not like you will study from a textbook or you will play with an app and then you're gonna know how to speak. Like, that's not how it works. You could do that for years and years and years and you still would have mostly a really strong vocabulary and not really like a comfortable like speaking muscle, if you know what I mean. So personally, speaking is like way up on my list. It's like right after memorizing basic sentence structure, or like just I think the number one on my list is just getting comfortable with the language. So I will just like listen to it a lot and vibe it out. Immersion. What is language vibe? Yeah. What is language vibe? I want to hear the sounds. I want to see the emotions on people's faces. I want to see how much of their body they use. I want to see, like, you know, what kind of energy they bring to this language. first. And then the second thing that right after is I'm trying to figure out how to speak some sentences and talk to myself, which is like my thing. And in every language except for Mandarin, where I'm a chicken, I have developed my speaking ability very fast, to a high level, with the kind of intonation that makes people go, are you half? Are you like mixed or something? Is your dad from here or something like that? And that's always been my thing. But then what you have to know is that when you focus on that, then the rest of it suffers. So my spelling will be bad. Like when I did Korean, I would talk and people were like, oh my God, it's like you're Korean. It's crazy. And then they would see my writing. Like I would write down a journal entry that's this big and they would be like, 너 초딩 있냐? Like, are you an elementary school student? Because what the hell is this? Like, and so it's all about what you put your energy into and how you approach your studying. So if you're somebody who is like bront'e and possibly Anna, who puts the speaking down a little bit lower depending on the language, what you need to know is that it's okay for it to take time, and it's okay for you to prioritize feeling more comfortable in a different skill first.
Yes.
Yeah. To add to the two of you, I also I'm different from Ray. I wish I was more like Ray sometimes, but you cannot like force it on yourself to a degree. And I'm also a book lover, so I would want to like know about the written language first. Is what fascinates me usually of languages. I'm a big fan of alphabets and like different logograms, for example, for like more like Japanese or Chinese languages. And so I'm in love with the written words, and so speaking will get like it's a little bit lower on the list for me as well, because it becomes a secondary achievement for me in a way. And this is interesting because to a degree it's a different way of experiencing the language, because reading a language is a communication happens between you and you in a way. So it's like the written word and yourself, while when you're speaking there is most likely, if we're not talking about AI, which we would probably talk about later, it's between two people. And so it's a different expectation of how there's more factors in it, because it's like there's more pressure on being able to express yourself the way you want to be, the authenticity to yourself, to who you are, and also achieving a goal with this other person. So being able to be understood and being able to understand what they're saying. So there's a lot of more, like, many factors that come into play. Also, when you're an adult, especially, the fear of losing face to a degree, so being perceived as a dumb person, all these anxieties and like pressure comes to you, and so it can be very intimidating, but that's also why it's important to get comfortable with it as soon as possible, in a way, because it's a long process, I feel, to get comfortable with yourself in a different language, I feel, because we talked about this before on this podcast, but it's like you're finding a different self when you're learning a language, right? You need to find who you are in that language, and that's not easy, of course, because you're already a person that is adult and has all like everything figured out in a way about yourself, or not. But it's a way to explore that. All right, basic things, 100%. Not everything. Sorry. Okay. Yeah, so
100%.
What do you say that we read some of the comments? Let's see. Maku-chan says, I struggle that when I speak Japanese, I feel like my brain turns off and I don't have control or memory after what I was saying, so simply think I talk nonsense, dropping maybe random words. Nothing wrong with dropping random words, by the way, if the communication happens, but I know, because I know you, Maku, that maybe you have a little bit of trauma related to that. So being judged for the way you were speaking, because I know, because we've talked about this before, but I'm not assuming, but in a way it can be that sucks, because I know that Maku had like a very judgmental teacher for Japanese. So that's why it's very hard for him to like improve in the language, and I feel like that requires like special attention. So it's not like we cannot give you like, oh yeah, no, just try this little tip, you know.
Just do it.
I feel just speak more and it will be fine. So I think that requires a little bit special attention, but it's good to know, you know, to understand a little bit how you're experiencing, like what's going wrong in a way, what is that is holding you back in a way, to work on it. Sydney also struggles with speaking, she says. Let's see, speaking language and learning how to speak is different. Oh yeah, definitely. Learning how to speak it, can you explain a little bit better what you were thinking about this, Alfred? I would love to hear your thoughts. Oh my god, another ad. Yeah. No, Maku. I'm so sorry. But this podcast stays afterwards, so just in case, if you want to like put it in the background later as well, you can listen to it again to get some company. Yes. Let's see. Yes. Brooke also is a quiet person, so intrinsic motivation for speaking is low, they say. That is, I get it. Oh my goodness.
Usually the motivation to speak for me goes up if I have friends already that I know that speak the language, but I don't always choose a language that I know a friend speaks. I just choose it for other reasons. And then I'm like, oh wait, I forgot you speak the language, or wait, you speak that language? Okay.
This is gonna sound crazy, but I just, as you guys were saying that, I was thinking, what is my motivation to speak? Because I don't even necessarily think it's to make friends, especially these days, because I'm so hikikomori, like I'm definitely an ambivert, so I charge up indoors and then I go outside, and I'm very extroverted for like 2 days and then I go back inside for 3 weeks kind of style. But yeah, so I was thinking, what does make me want to speak so much? And I realized, I think what it is that I like to try on like a new identity, or I like the feeling of stepping into a new culture. So it feels zesty, or like it makes me feel kinship to speak the language. So even if I'm talking to myself or I'm reacting to a TV show, I can feel myself a part of something. That could possibly be mixed girl trauma, but I feel I feel connected to them in a way. And I think that each skill, when we learn a language, we're all trying to find some sort of connection. And also because I have another friend who doesn't do languages, but when I talk to her, I can tell that she has the same depth of understanding of other cultures and other cultural worlds, and like their world perspective, which comes with a new language, because she dances. And so she goes to these new countries and she learns how to dance just like them, and she moves their body just like them, and she gets into the mood of like how they would act at a party. So obviously much more extroverted than we are, but but it was so interesting because it's like she tuned into their habits and who they are in a way that I find so difficult to discuss with the average monolingual, even though she's monolingual. So I think the way that body movement is also a culture, like let's say Italian has so much body movement and the expression and whatnot, but also you can go into somebody's mind or a cultural mind through their prose, like how they
Yes.
describe things, you know, in a book. So we're all looking for different ways to kind of connect to this new mind, this
Yeah.
new reference mind of another culture.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because it's like a lot of time it's viewed as like one thing in a way, like one blob of like things that is usually a stereotype or like at the general description that can be true for many people, but not all of them, right? So there's like a way, in a way, like to me at least, when I learned Japanese, for example, which is my most recent one, language that I learned like fluently in a way, I think what motivated me to learn speaking very well were 101, you know, not dates, but like going out with people 101. So it wasn't like a big group of people that would be intimidating, but like just being able to speak with a person, taking your time, if you don't know a word, to ask what it means, and like working with dictionaries maybe, or like asking for opinions on how you're speaking. So like this slow paced kind of conversation with a person that you trust to a degree is like the best way for me to experience language. But I'm sure maybe for your friend Ray, if they were to learn language, maybe going to a big party and speak with many people
and just having everybody,
you know, would be more motivating. And this like you need to kind of know yourself a little bit, and definitely like learning how to speak a language puts you outside of your comfort zone 100%. But you need to get out of your comfort zone in a way that is comfortable to you, I feel. So you need to know what
100%.
works for you, right?
Yeah. And I will also add, because I talk about this a lot with a lot of the people I work with, because it's always speaking and confidence and like getting out of your comfort zone, like you said. And one, speaking is one of those skills that is much more active than any of the others. You can't passively learn to speak. You can't learn to speak through osmosis. You actively have to do it. And speaking is more than just speaking. I say this all the time. Like, speaking is not just learn to speak. There's recall. So being able to, you know, pull the information from your brain when you need it and actually say it out loud. There's like recognition when someone else says it, you know, especially with accents and dialects. There's so many layers to that one skill. And so when you just focus on the conversation part, but you don't focus on, can you actually remember the words when you need them, or the pronunciation, or sentence building? Like, can you make a sentence?
Actually, that's why this is so important. And this conversation, like, okay, so in the beginning we started out by saying, we all three of us have a really different perspective on how to learn language. But what you have to realize is that it gets so meta, because we started out by saying, speaking is completely different from listening, and you have to understand that, and there's like completely different uses. But there's like 10 different skills inside of listening. There's like 10 different skills inside of speaking. So it becomes extremely nuanced, because even native speakers, as we've talked about before, will be more competent or less competent in some of these skills. Like, you know, we talk about media literacy. How many people watch TV shows or even TikToks, native speakers, and they're like, so what is going on here? Like, what are they talking about? Like, there's a huge range of skills when it comes to languages. But as second language learners, we expect ourselves to be able to do all of it, even at an above level, even at, you know, we
because we're
expect
adults.
it even higher. We expect ourselves to be able to manage even better than native speakers. We expect to understand every nuance. We should, and when it's really, we're like trying to you know, have 100% skill of like the entire population of native speakers, instead of like understanding and accepting who you are as a speaker, as a second.
Yeah,
Yeah,
when you
this.
start learning a language.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No, no, I would just say, like, you're not forced to learn things that you don't care about. Just saying, just a reminder for everybody. Just speak about the things you like with the people you like. You don't need to force yourself to say anything more than that, you know?
100%.
Yeah, sorry,
100%.
Bront'e.
Absolutely.
I just want to
No,
say
it's just I always feel like I'm my brain goes to video games, and I'm like, when you start learning a language, it's like starting the video game from the beginning. You don't have any tools, you don't have armor, you're at level 1, you can't fight any of the creatures. You're not prepared for the battle yet. You have to start from there. It's like it doesn't matter if you've played another game very similar to that and you know how the game works. This is a new one.
That's true. That's true. I have
This
to say
is a new
that's
profile.
I'm about to read some comments, but before I do, I have to say that is so true because I recently posted a reel to Gigi on Instagram. If you're not following us on Instagram yet, you should, because we post little nuggets all the time. But on Instagram, I shared a post about a technique that my Mandarin teacher professor years ago suggested to me, and I was like, this is so stupid, this is such a waste of time, this is busy work. And I was so adamant that it was stupid at the time. I mean, I didn't tell her, but I always waited until last minute to do this assignment, and it was the main thing that she did. And I was like, wow, so you don't want to teach and you're just gonna make us. So essentially it was copying dialogue roots, and I would never do this for any other language. I think I wouldn't do this for Spanish, I wouldn't do this for Swedish, I wouldn't do this for Korean. But what I realized later is that because Chinese is very, very based on word order and just like the actual words themselves, there's not a lot of patterns or grammar or things that I can memorize or play around with. It's very much, I need to memorize and feel comfortable with using these words like this. And also I need to memorize the characters, which takes a lot of reps, just a lot of reps. So after I realized, I'm like, wait a second, this is actually the best way to engage all of those skills and remember it. And I would never do it in any other language. It's extremely specific to Mandarin. And so when you learn a new language, there are skills that are transferable, like things that you get used to and you're like, okay, I know what to look for. But you have to stay open with like what you're actually doing to learn, because each one is so different. I'm gonna read some comments. Wait, so I know earlier that we missed that Axel said something about Netflix has a browse by language function. Yes, that's very helpful. And I recommend, I mean, it's summer, if you're gonna be hiding from the heat, you can use that as a double up. So have 2 subtitles, that's great.
You can use also language reactor for that, but that's
yes.
So you can put like different subtitles together. Sorry.
There are a few now out there, but yeah, it's you check out the one you like the most. Then we have Alfred saying, speaking a language isn't merely about knowing what's the right thing to say. I'm saying this as an interpreter, but also reading the lines sometimes to know what the other person actually means. AKA translation and knowing a language is really not like the skill of learning, because a lot of the times we approach language as if I need to figure out how to say what I would say in another language. I need to figure out how to translate my thoughts and feelings into this new language. But a lot of time your thoughts and feelings don't translate into the new language. Can we talk about that? Someone want to
absolutely, because like, for example, like idioms and metaphors, and you know, if we're saying like, I'm gonna bring down the hammer, and you translate that, we're not literally bringing down a hammer, but how do I express that in a natural way in another language? I love when we talk about like different ways to say like, you know, it's raining really hard, or you know, in different languages, and we're like, that's what you say? Really? Or like, you know, you're a liar. And
it rains cats and dogs. It still baffles
me.
Anyways, Yeah.
So it's just, yep.
Yeah, sorry. I want to raise you because idioms is one thing, because that's kind of like how to get this, like, okay, we are saying something specific that represents this meaning, and
Yeah.
they are going to say something very different to represent this meaning. But also maybe that meaning is so uncommon in the other language, or it's like we or it just doesn't, there just isn't that meaning. So like if I want to say, all right, like I don't know, in Jamaica, when you say like serious, like really, right, like really, he said that, then you go true, right? And the way that we say it, it doesn't necessarily translates to really, like this feeling is different. The feeling that I get when I go true, it's completely different from anything that I could try to explain in English. It just drops. So my heart in Jamaica in that sense is not translatable, and that happens a lot. Like if I want to say something like, you know, it's the mission at heart, I don't know, some kind of conversation, even if I translate it word for word into Mandarin or Japanese, it's not gonna land the same way. It's not gonna land the same way.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, the thing is, like, it all boils down to like how you can translate what is behind the words in your language to different ways to express that in the other language, so you can have the same kind of perception from the people that you're speaking to, right? So it's to me, to a degree, I remember when I was in Japan, especially because you're like immersed in an environment where people speak the language all the time. Every time there would be like a interesting situation, like somebody's surprised about something or something like that, you look at how people react to things and you take a mental note. So next time you kind of do the same. For example, in Japan, when people are very surprised, they do like hey, and they have like this long yeah. So, or if they're less surprised, or like who, like they would do some kind of vocalization of this, right? And when you start noticing these things, you take mental note and you're like, yes, okay, when I'm surprised I will say that, and I will copy how they're doing it. It's it's that is a way, to a degree, like it wouldn't give the same effect to the person you're speaking to if you would just translate what you would say in your own language. So being able to get in touch with this kind of like original ways, and maybe, you know, sometimes it's not like everybody does this, maybe only this person does this, and so maybe you copy something and it's not perceived the same way. But this happens also in our own language, I feel. Like when when you say like best friends kind of speak the same to a degree, it's because they influence each other all the time, right? So there's no right or wrong, really. It's just finding yourself and the way you prefer to be perceived also.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think sorry, Bront'e, go ahead.
No, it's just two thoughts that I had as both of you were talking, because one, thinking about when you do adopt those ways of communicating, then they start to permeate into other languages and you start to, you know, sound a little bit interesting, we'll say. You know, you're speaking English with your friend and you're like, eh? And you're like, wait, no, you have no idea what I'm doing. I'm agreeing.
Yeah, I think one of those things that have really outed me is when I make noises sitting down. Like I'm sitting down or getting up and I'm like, you know, and I do the Korean thing and I make a lot of noise and people are like, what the hell, are you 80 years old? And I'm like, oh no, that's but I was gonna say that God, what was I gonna say?
Oh no.
No, it's okay, it's totally okay. But I don't know, what did you just say? Sorry, you were saying.
I was talking about being perceived and like making mental notes about what people say.
Yeah, sorry,
this was very Japanese as well.
You said you were talking about the a as an example, but I was thinking I'm gonna give one that I think is even harder to. So Anna gave a equals somewhat surprise, right? So even though it is a distinctly Japanese thing, we can recognize it as surprise. Now, just an example that came into my mind is saying something like nante, or like just adding into things a million times. So if I'm like, そのやつってさ、あのやつってさ, and then you would like break it up 10 times. So let's not even talk about the singular use. Let's talk about like a barrage of だってさ, a barrage of it in order. Like, how do I exactly translate the feeling that gives to somebody? Like, there's a personality, energy to it. There's a lot of feelings to it that you only learn by embracing the language and understanding it through osmosis and context, and not by translating it. So a lot of speaking is doing stuff like that. So you're balancing between translating yourself and figuring out how to communicate, but also how to absorb things that you never considered before, like things that were just never in your mind's eye before. And then as a polyglot, you definitely get mixed the hell up, because and you just sound like a foreigner to everybody.
Your own people too.
And then on top of that, also learning how to express yourself in ways that you don't necessarily do in your native language. So I love how we're all just naturally sticking with Japanese, because I was like, what came up for me was like in Japanese, I could say something like "ikitai and just that's the end. Like, I want to go, but and I don't have to finish that sentence, and everyone knows that I'm like, yeah, but I'm not going to. I'm not gonna go. But if I say that in English, like, I want to go, but like it's okay in certain contexts, but usually people are like, but what? Like, why can't you go? Like, we want a reason. But in Japanese, generally, it's accepted for you to end it that way, and they're like, "Oh, you know, it's okay. Like, eat this."
You just be like,
"There's a lot of interpreting what you're saying." That's true. I feel,
and there's that cultural nuance around that.
I was watching a reel recently. We're gonna read some comments soon. No, sorry, guys, but I was watching a reel that was talking about an American person talking about how she cannot understand Italian sarcasm. And I was so interested in that, because she was saying like American people will clearly show you that they are sarcastic, like laughing afterwards or like making it super clear. But Italian people just stay serious all the way through. Like, they will never have a punchline to the sarcasm. So there will never be a moment where tension is released, but it's just like serious, like sarcasm. And she was talking about how she's struggling with that. So even the same kind of like, you know, theme, so sarcasm can be so different in different cultures. And these little things. Yeah,
I can see it. I can see the Italian people, and you're just like their face is like, finish, and you're like,
she was making this example. It was like, somebody asking like, can you pass me the glass of water, and American person would be like, no. And like something like that, you know. So, but Italian, something like that. An Italian person would be like, you know what, I need to start charging you money for this, because it's not possible that you ask me for water all the time. And that's it. That's the sarcasm for the Italian person, which is funny for us. But
it's so funny, because that's literally the sarcasm I grew up around. So maybe my sarcasm is Italian, because I was like, I'd understand that. Because my sister, every time we ask her for things, she's always like, $5. Now you got to start. Like, you know, like, that's her sarcasm. So.
Yeah, no, that's funny, because obviously it can be different from person to person, but so I was generally this was interesting to me, because it can be like such a subtle thing to a degree. We always say that Japanese people don't understand sarcasm, but sometimes it could be like even closer cultures, like we would say like American and Italian are definitely closer than Japanese and American. But so interesting. Let's read some comments. Who wants to read? Raise your hand.
Let's see.
Bront'e,
Bront'e, you're up. You're up.
you're up.
Okie dokie. Okay, so we left off with Alfred. Sometimes languages can be contextual. Like if an English person saying, I'm afraid I can't help you with this, it shifts into an indirect no. But for some European countries, they're very direct with what they mean. And things like a yes is a yes without beating around the bush. Yeah, absolutely. Like there's actually there's probably now a series of videos out where they're talking about in, let's say, American English, because I don't know if it's the same in others, when we say like yeah no yeah no yeah no like just those series of words in order, and it means something different. Like no yeah no.
It's hilarious because I 1000% do that. Like yeah no yeah.
Yeah,
yeah,
like,
sure. I mean,
yeah, no, yeah,
no,
I get it.
Yeah.
No, no, you know.
Yeah, we have that in Italian as well, for example. So it's not weird for me, but I know that some of my students are very uncomfortable with these kind of things because they never understand which one is it. So is it the first no or is it the second yeah? You know.
Yeah,
so
I know the Asians will be really confused.
Yes.
Yeah,
it's like, wait, you switched your answer. No, it's layered.
No, yeah.
See, Alfred says, textbooks don't teach us that, but experience does.
Yes.
And Maggie says, sounds like Polish. We are so direct when using other languages usually. Using other languages usually. Okay. And then Brooke had responded to us saying, I struggle with recall so much. Do we have a short and sweet tip for recall?
Use the language as much as you can, because it's definitely like a direct proportion of like how like the less you use the language, the less you use the words, the less you will remember them. So
absolutely,
I have videos from 5 years ago where I was speaking Japanese, and sometimes I watch them and I'm like, man, I knew so many words, I wouldn't remember this word now. You know, and that's just because you were using it more at the time and you were maybe more immersed in language. So the only thing I can tell you to do is just to be immersed in the language as much as you can, and they will come to you, I promise. And now you're gonna be like, how can I remember every single word I've ever learned? No, probably you won't find situations to use all the words. But
absolutely.
Yes.
I guess my only suggestion would be that when you are practicing, to be emotive. So the more you can bind words to emotions, and I know that Brooke struggles with this, so Brooke is one of our members, but because she's not a very emotive expressor, so this is also possibly a reason why recall is something specifically difficult for her, in my imagination. So the more you can bind words to a stimulus or sentences, so it's about like you need to connect the words. So okay, in English I just said it's about like it's about like is a stringed connection for me that gets pulled out, and when you pull one word, the next 3 or 4 comes out with it. So when you practice those kind of jerk reactions, it's best that you try to bind them to an emotion, like and give it its whole emotion while you're practicing, even exaggerate. So even that, like if you were learning it's about like, then you would just be like, it's about like, it's about like, and you would over exaggerate it and try to catch it in your spirit. But yeah, so it's a lot about practice, but the more in the spirit of how you would actually say it with whatever emotions, that way when you feel the things that you feel, it urges your brain to spit those words out. That's the hope.
And also, can I say
scenario?
Sorry, Ray was talking about speaking with themselves before, and like this I sometimes have conversation with myself in the shower in different languages when I'm like, maybe I see something on a TV drama or something, and there's like a situation where they're fighting, and so I'm like, I have this imaginary fight where I say what I would say to a degree, and I repeat it different times until it has like that flavor that I want it to have, which sounds like being crazy, but it helps so much.
It's not.
Because when you're in the situation, you're practiced. You know what to say, you know how to say it to a degree. So it's like being an actor as well at the beginning. Then it will come more naturally, I feel. But create those little like role play situations for yourself.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
If you have a friend to do like improv, you can do that. But I'm alone usually.
I literally cannot think without
Turn
talking
everything
to myself.
into a scenario. Like you're making your lunch, you're on a cooking show.
Mm.
You know, you're like working. Explain what you're doing while you're working. You're reading a book. Oh, I'm reading this book right now and it's glorious. And you know, like
pretend to be an influencer and be like, yo,
yes,
guys,
today I'm here's my makeup routine as you're in the bathroom putting on like your moisturizer or something.
100%. 100.
This
That's the
works.
best advice.
Yeah.
Advice.
Speak with yourself.
The next comment here is, there was a YouTube video about how seasoned gamers understand games in general compared to how seasoned language learners might pick up languages easier. So meaning the more you do the exercise, the more you're in the realm, because there are things like we mentioned that every language is different, but I guess what Korea is suggesting here, which is true also, every language has different functional pieces. It has aspects to it underlying. So I always say, like, actually I was in a podcast interview last week that isn't out yet, but they asked me.
You betrayed
They
us.
asked me.
I'm just kidding.
It wasn't language relating, don't worry. But
Okay.
everybody's always like, you speak something, what do you do? Anyway, so they asked me, what did they ask me? They asked me what would be my top tip or my top secret to easily learning languages, or like how to make language acquisition faster, which is not my favorite question because I don't really think we need to make it faster. However, my answer was that if anything, learning your own language helps you to pick up new languages faster. That's because once you understand why you say things, or what are the pieces of your language, like why do I use pronouns? What is the point of it? Why is the verb in the middle in an English sentence? What is the purpose of that? Why would I make that choice? When you start to understand those things, and you do naturally understand them more as you learn more languages, you start to get, oh, this is how this functions. Oh, they don't do that? Well, they must do this. Oh, okay. So basically this is how they're doing a spin-off of this thing that we do in this other language, you know? So it's about seeing the patterns of how humans figured out how to communicate, and that makes it easier to accept when it's very different from a language that you already.
Absolutely. Read a little bit about linguistics, which is the study of this, like patterns in the languages, functions of different words. If you're interested in having like a little bit of introduction on how languages work, try to find something online. Not like too complicated studies, because it can be freaking complicated, I tell you.
Yes.
So just find some introduction about linguistics where they talk about, especially also like why do we make sentences the way we do, like Ray was saying. Why do we compose words the way we do, to a degree? So that is good advice. Sorry, Bront'e.
I was going to give an example. No, we're all on the same page, because I was just going to give an example in English, because I also love thinking about this. And so like if we're describing like a house and we say the great big yellow house, we don't say the yellow big great house because it sounds weird. And you don't realize that you say it that way.
Yeah.
But there's a reason why. There's a logical rule for that we just don't think about.
Yeah, you just do it because it
that
sounds
one
good.
always kills me.
Yeah, I sometimes mix it up just to make people uncomfortable.
And then they're like,
yeah.
Did you mean
Yeah.
Every
like,
time I see that
no.
rule, I'm
Yeah.
like, that is crazy. How do I do that naturally? Like I'm like, brain, you really got all that up in there? Really?
Yeah.
I get confused every time I see it.
Mhm.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yes. Brooke said, yeah, she was talking about copying dialogue ages
Oh,
ago,
yeah.
and I mentioned it about Mandarin, but she said that definitely wouldn't work with Korean. Koreans throw around grammar and word orders so much, it's chaos. And yeah, exactly. If there's a lot of liberties that can be taken, like you can write whatever you want, you can play around with your words, like playing around with your words is part of the art of speaking, then this is not going to be the way that you want to study. Like you want to practice forming your own thoughts and seeing different ways that people express themselves, and picking styles out that match you, that feel comfortable to you. But for Mandarin, it works pretty well to build up. So that's a good comparison. Alfred said it's sometimes about your judgment at the moment. I think he was talking about expressing yourself in like specific ways when you're learning new idiomatic, new vibes in new languages, and that's definitely true. It's up to you at some point. It links a little bit to what we were saying. Like everybody has their unique style as well, so it's about finding what works that both communicates what you want to say but also feels like you.
Yep.
And
you jumped over some comments. I don't know what
sorry.
you were saying. Regarding the hammer, is this related to hitting the iron?
Oh yeah. So I said like to drop to like throw down the hammer. It's like to end something. It's almost like to, what is it, to like drop the gauntlet? There's like variations of it, but it's like, this is over. We're done.
Yeah. So it's an idiomatic expression, it's called. So you're using different words that in different contexts have different meanings, but together in that particular expression they gain a meaning that transcends the singular literal meaning of every word.
Yeah, and you can think of it as if I were literally throwing down a hammer, let's say after using it.
Yeah,
I'm not using it anymore. I am I'm like storming away probably.
Yeah, definitely the etymology comes from something usually. Yes.
Yeah.
Then Brooke says I think she was saying that her difficulty with recall with speaking is I need to figure out how to translate my thoughts. So this is where she gets stuck. Like I need to translate what I'm saying. So we spend a lot of time talking about how that is not the helpful thing, because our thoughts should be informed by the language that we're speaking. I think that is the root of what I've been trying to say with this, is that if you are translating your thoughts, that means you are building your thoughts from this English space or this native whatever language space that's not your target language. And you want to be co-creating thoughts with the new cultural reference, the new cultural sphere, if that makes sense. Yeah, and she said, I get so stuck on this and I still haven't figured out how to not think that way. I'm impatient and want to say my thoughts exactly as they are. This sounds like a neurodivergent problem.
Definitely,
yes, it can be frustrating not to say exactly, and it is something that you have to learn, because I think that I struggled with that a lot in Mandarin as well, because it's just so different. Like they just don't have the words I want to say. Like I'm like, no, this is what I want to say, and they're like, what the hell does that mean? Like this doesn't exist here, and I hate that. It makes me like or an English sentence would have like twice the amount of words that a Japanese sentence might say. Like if I want to say something, I can totally express myself with this much, but my English brain wants me to express with that much. And it's something you have to practice, like to turn off the English, like force yourself. Don't start with English. Think only, and
don't start with English is the point. I like that.
Yes.
You cannot expect to translate. Yeah, that's also like a big how to say, holding back point for many people who are beginners usually, because they try to translate. We all know that word for word it's not possible, but they try to translate exactly what but they don't have maybe the tools to understand how to say this exact thing. And so this comes with experience, we were saying, and immersion, as Ray was saying, and also it has to come with self-awareness. So you need to know yourself also and get to know yourself in that new language, which is the hardest point, I think, and that's what probably Brooke struggles with. You will be a different person, and that's because language shapes so much who we are to a degree. Mm-hmm.
And
you have to visualize that yourself. Sorry, go ahead.
No, to add to that, like a practical thing that I do to try to turn that part of my brain off so I can try to, you know, monolingually express myself. I think of the words that I know as almost like a word bank or like a Rolodex or something. Like you have to scroll through them all. And rather than thinking of the sentence first in my native language and then trying to figure out the parts in the language I'm trying to express myself in, I am literally saying, what words do I know? And which word makes sense for what I like, the feeling I have or the thought that I have. So like if I were trying to say it something in Japanese, my instinct is like about myself, watashi, right? So what comes next after watashi? Like, okay, maybe I'm trying to talk about a book that I'm reading. Watashi, hon. Like, I don't need to think about the English word first because the physical book is in front of me. Like, the pictures are in front of me, or the like vision. And so rather than trying to craft the sentence in my case in English first and then figure out how to translate it, it's more like what's the idea I have, or what, you know, what's the conversation about, and what words do I know that connect to that? Like I try to immediately think, in this case, Japanese first. Okay. I don't even try to. It's still it's weird, and I don't know if this is making sense, but I just try to pull those words first, and you have it takes practice.
It makes sense. It makes sense.
You have to actively go Japanese first. What's a word to express the feeling?
Yeah, because we tend to connect a word in our language to the word in that language and make that connection. Instead, like if I can interpret a little bit what Bront'e is saying from my point of view, instead let's create connections between words in that language. So let's have like a big map of a network of, like, if you learn the word for hon, book, you will connect that to maybe yomu, which is read, right? Reading. So having connections between the words in that language. So which verbs will you use when you're talking about this thing, or like which things are connected? Also, Bront'e, we see you. Okay, no, you're back.
No, I just fixed it. I was waiting for it to happen because I was like, it's been too good so far.
we can see you.
No, but I'm also glad you brought up the word map, because I know, Ray, you've talked about that a lot, of creating those word connections.
Yes, I 100% believe in those word connections, building maps, like having linking, because I always explain it that languages function. So if you want to, when you learn a language, it sits in the front of your head, and that's the information stage, and then you can reference that information in the front of your head, but it takes a lot of effort, and it takes you're actively having to go into your head to pull out the word. And this is usually when you are translating a lot, because the words aren't connected. You're just going into a bank of words. When you're able to actually push that language from the waiting room, I call it, into your long-term memory, into your natural recall memory, when you're able to do that, the difference really is that you call on one word and you pull up the rest with it. So that's how, like, I always say it's not exactly, it's a chain. So it's always like you have to build the chains so that when you do call upon them, they come out together. And I wanted to say something radically different as well, but I think I cannot speak until I have caught some kind of core like feeling, identity, concept from this new language. So I have experienced this where I know a lot of words and I just cannot feel natural. I just cannot start speaking yet, and I can't understand. I'm like, damn it. And then I watch a TV show, like a long TV show, and within watching the TV show, I'm catching it. I'm starting to catch how they communicate with each other. And this sounds very abstract. And while bront'e was talking, while Anna was talking, I was trying to figure out how to make it less abstract. But I think it's about finding things that those people feel strongly about or often reference and connecting with something in it. So for example, my first thought about Korean is I remember watching a what do you call it? What is it called? 예능. 예능. But what is that called in English? Variety show. Yes.
Yeah. I was like, I know what you're talking about.
I was watching a variety show and I realized that in every variety show they have like one episode where they fight about, do you eat by dipping in the sauce or do you eat do you pour all the sauce on everything? So this was a conversation they had often, and everybody got really excited every time this question was asked. So they're just like, are you a sauce pourer or are you a sauce dipper? And they were very serious about it, right? And I was like, I got it. I'm connecting with this is an inside cultural moment.
Yeah.
Or let's say how Asian people or like how Koreans will talk about certain appearance things, like how they express themselves when they first meet you after a long time. There's aspects of the culture that is very specific to that culture that help me to start to detach myself from my original persona and create that new identity. So what Anna was trying to say is that it's important to create this new self that is in between your old self and the new self. But this is my suggestion for trying to kick yourself to leave behind the old self a bit and truly see yourself from new eyes. So like when I watch these shows and stuff, or I'm watching a Swedish show and I notice that, okay, they're very analytical, first of all. So they have a lot of like, you know, stuffy conversations, kind of like British people do, you know. So I was like, oh, it's very kind of Swedish, but it's very Britishy. I'm getting that vibe. I also caught that I'm like, okay, they're super polite, like annoyingly polite, like the kind of political, you know, like they're talking on the phone, they're like, hey, you know, they get like really, oh, how are you, where have you been? And I was like, all right, okay. So there's this kind of like eloquent kind of graceful energy. So I'm like, okay, this is the graceful me now, you know, like I'm very smart and graceful in Swedish. So I pull into that, and then I allow Swedish to shape that new person once I start from that course.
That's a wonderful image. I like that. I like this imagery. It's very visual. Thank you, Ray. Oh, that was
especially
nice.
because it's not like we're trying to be something we're not. It's just an aspect of ourselves already. And then to add to that, or just to bring back the word connections, I think doing both of those things, you'll have the words that come up when you're trying to say the one thing, and you'll have your new identity that has been shaped by your dedicated study of how people communicate in that language.
Yes, it has to be personal. That's why it's difficult.
It has to be personal.
Yep.
Yes,
and you will always be a little different. I think. Oh, sorry. I just wanted to throw this really quick, but I used to, because I'm the speaking person, so this is not necessarily for Brooke necessarily, but if someone else is listening and you're somebody who does catch on quickly but are still feeling kind of blocked about certain aspects, I used to catch and get hindered by this a lot, where I would beat myself up with because I cannot be exactly Korean or exactly Japanese.
Yeah.
I get it.
I got so close, like I would get really close to the point where I almost don't recognize myself. So I'm talking and I'm speaking in their way, and then I need to take a break and speak in my native language to feel myself again. And that was also not sustainable. So there comes a time, and I think this again comes with experience, but there comes a time when you learn the balance of, oh, I can say stuff that is also weird to them. I can say stuff that sounds weird to them and they will still understand me, and I know that they will understand it from a different perspective, and I will introduce my original perspective in a Japanese-ish, Korean-ish, Spanish-ish way, and that will be a part of my persona as well. You don't have to exactly be like them either.
Yep. This is something that is pressured into language learners sometimes to sound like a native or like, you know, absolutely. And I feel like we need to detach from this. It's time to stop feeling pressured to do so. You're not a native, so you might as well just bring the wonderful flavors from all the different experiences and different languages and cultures you have in your baggage. And do it because it's beautiful, and the right people will be very happy to see those parts of you. So yes,
exactly.
1000%. Let's see. All right, yeah, the Brooke says that they picked up oi in Swedish, and her family is very confused. I don't know Swedish enough. Is it oi?
Yes, it's like, yeah, oi. It's like, oh, it's kind of like you're surprised, like, oh, okay, or you do something by accident, or oh, wow, you're surprised, shocked. It's kind of soft,
which is,
you know, like
definitely not the Japanese oi.
Yeah, no.
Oi.
Yeah, I was like, I would have not expected that.
No, it's like oi. Yeah, oi, hopsa.
Oi.
They say hopsa is oops. So
and
like, oi,
Alfred asked a question 3,000 years ago, so let's try to answer as I mean, we're a little bit over our time, so let's try to answer to the question. Do you consider grammar in spoken conversations important? Interesting.
Okay, I'll just throw a rock and say that yes and no, as usual.
I was gonna say yes and
no. But it's important generally. The general structure is important. It's important that the grammar is good enough that people understand what you're saying. So I would say that about every skill. Like we talk about pronunciation not being important, but it's important to the point that people understand you, and no more. And I think that grammar is actually perhaps the least important. Like when you get past the basic structural aspects, it's the least important of the roster. I would say it's even less important than pronunciation personally, only because people do understand you. So if you want to own it, you can totally own it. Like you know, I even think it's cute in English. Like when people mix up word order, I'm like, yes, speak
do
more.
It's
maybe we should do it that way.
Yeah, right. And to add to this, definitely we were talking about random words earlier with Maku. Vocabulary is definitely above as important, like in the importance scale compared to grammar, because you can say book, read, and people will have an idea of what you're saying, you know, maybe not exactly what you want to say, but let's say the thematic environment has been defined. So you're talking about books, you're talking about reading, so something about that. So it's already a point of contact, of communication with this other person. Well, if you only know how to make the past tense or like the volitive or something like that, but you don't know the word for reading, people will have no idea what you're saying because you're not introducing the topic at all. So definitely random words all the way. Also, about this, because I live on Instagram, there is an interesting channel where there is like a couple and she's Italian and he's British, I think, and he speaks in broken Italian. But like when I say broken, he messed up every single like word, gender, and plural and singular, and verbs, conjugations. All of them are like all over the place, to the point that she has to add subtitles in Italian because it's for people who are learning Italian as well. But what is super interesting is that everybody understands what he's saying all the time, because it's not like it's the exact things. So this person understood, I can say it like this and people will understand, so I stop here. I don't want to force myself to speak perfectly. Now, will I personally agree with that? No, because I'm a perfectionist, but at the same time, why not? You know, if your goal is to communicate with people above like speaking as clearly as possible, if you want, if you're over that threshold we were saying, why not? You can stop there, right? It's very interesting.
Yeah.
Yes.
And to add to that really quickly, I think about, you know, when you meet or interact with people who speak your native language, that's the experience of, that's the same thing as when you are speaking someone else's language, and you can understand people when they're speaking your native language. You're like, oh, I get the gist, I know what you're saying. Sometimes it might be a conversation where you're like, you ask and you like, I don't want to say fix the sentence, but you say the sentence in a way that makes sense to you personally, like, is this what you meant? But you're having a conversation. That's how they work. You're interacting, you're expressing yourself in their exactly.
Yeah,
and
you
so
just, is this what you mean? That's it.
yeah, and we do that again even as a native speaker. You know, the other day I was trying to think of the word sleeping bag and I couldn't think of it. And I was like, you know, it's the thing you roll up when you go to camping and you lay it out and then you go to sleep on it. What's that called? I was like, a backpack? No. And I started going through a list of words and I was like, I cannot think of this. I was like, pack, bag, like those are the only two words that came to mind, and I could not for the life of me think of it for 10 minutes.
Yes,
this is my native language.
Backpack sent me.
I get it.
So if that helps you to give yourself a little bit more grace,
yes,
as someone speaking another language, even in our native language we're gonna forget, even in our native language we're gonna, you know, and we've said this before, like forget how to put a sentence together, or we'll pause and try to figure out what we're trying to say. I think about the conversations of like past tense to drink, and there's like drunk versus drank. You know,
I still don't know the difference between who and whom.
Or lay and lie, you know, things that like native speakers get wrong, but we all get it and we just move on.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
yeah, absolutely.
Yes. I am gonna help us round off here, but thank you everyone for all of your beautiful comments. This is always so much fun, and for those listening later or have this in the background that who are not here live with us, we do this every month. So if you are in our Discord server, in our community server, that's where you get the notification most clearly. That's where you know when we're planning the next one. Usually it's the first weekend of the month, but not always. So you're gonna want to be inside the community so that you know what's up. And if you have any questions, if you want to be on the hot seat to get some insights into how you can become a polyglot or learn a new language, then come join us live and we'll answer your questions for free. I mean, you can't get better than that.
We're also learners like you, so we can just make a nice conversation. Especially like if you feel like you have something to say, we can definitely organize Polyglots talk with you in it.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah. So do reach out. We are chronically online. We also just love to interact with you in the server. Each of us have our own social media, but we also have GG. And if you want more tips, you will find them. We have been at this for a long time, so there's a lot on the interwebs. And yeah, we also have a shop full of tools and some interesting magazine, ebooks, all sorts of things with, you know, more perspectives in a more artistically put way. So if that is your fancy as well, then you can check us out at shop.gladlyglobal.com. And yeah, I'm just going to thank everyone for being here and summarize a tiny bit. It's summer, so we always talk about fluency and talking in summer, as when we're always out and having more experiences. People are going on study abroad trips, they're doing all sorts of things. But the takeaway for this for this session is that fluency is a very broad topic and there's not really one way to do it. But if you can, try to get in touch with the language that you want to speak. Try and get in touch with the culture, with their emotions. Try to imagine people and energy more than you are imagining words and syntax. Yeah, I think that summarizes it. Thank you for coming, everyone, and we'll see you in the next one.
Thank you. Bye, guys. Ciao, ciao.
Bye.
Bye.